In this tutorial we're going to be looking at some different ways of getting topography into Rhino. So we have terrain generated from an image. It's also an image. This is from a site plan. And then from Google Earth. So to start out with the first method, we're going to place our bitmap image, and I'm going to use the picture frame command to do that. So type picture frame, and we'll go get our image. I'm actually going to zoom into just my top view here. So the first corner, we're going to place it at the origin of 0, 0. And this particular image that I'm using doesn't have any scale to it as far as the length and the width, so I'm just going to set one on my own. So I'm going to type 200 for the length, and I'm just going to click to place the image. So I've got my picture in there. You can see that it's showing up in the other views. I'm just going to switch back to the top view. Now before I start tracing over this, I want to set up a few layers just to sort all of my geometry. So I'm going to open up the layers here. I'm going to make a first layer and call it image, and this is what our background image is going to go on. I'm going to make a second layer, call it contours, and we're going to change the third layer, and I'm going to make it topo surface. So after I got these set up, I'm going to select my image. I'm going to come down to the bottom here and change it to the image layer, and then I'm going to go ahead and lock it so that I can't accidentally edit this layer. Then I'm going to switch to my contours, and then we're going to start tracing over this. Now before I get to that, I want to show you two different polyline tools and kind of what the difference is between them. So I'm just going to draw these two rectangles here. Now with the polyline tool, you have the control point curve, then there's one right next to it, which is the curve interpolate points. So with the first tool here, this one will draw the polyline kind of on the inside of those points that you just selected. But with the interpolate points one, this will draw it basically on those points. So it's kind of up to you which polyline tool you want to use. You'll have to experiment with both to kind of get the feel of each one. So now I'm going to go ahead and trace over all of these contours here so that we can then use our patch command to make some topography. I've got 3 more contours to trace, but in this situation these last 2 lines are very similar to this third line right here. So instead of manually tracing them, I can save a little bit of time by using the offset command. So with offset, up at the top here, I'm actually going to click through point, and what this enables me to do is move my mouse, and it'll automatically place the line wherever my mouse is. So I can click there, offset again, make sure I click through point, then move it out to that second location. So now all my contours are placed, and now it's time to move them up. So I'm going to switch over to my perspective view, and you'll notice that in the image all of these contours have elevations marked to them. So usually the image you're working with should have the contours labeled, or at least it'll tell you the interval between them. So we want to have our gumball on at the bottom, and what this is going to do is put up the gumball, which is the 3-axis kind of movement tool, so that you can just type in measurements to move them in any of these directions. So with the lines highlighted, you can click this the blue arrow, and this contour is 36 feet up, so I can type 36. Then this one is 30, and I'm going to repeat this for all of these contours. Alright, so we got all of the contours moved to the right heights. I'm going to open my layers panel back up. I'm going to switch to my topo surface. Then I'm going to select all of the contours and then type patch. Now the patch command will basically put like a seamless surface, and it'll use the curves to do that. So these numbers right here, the U and the V spans, are basically how many, like the grid that is being used to make up this topography. So the larger the number, the smaller the squares and the more of them. So you can see with the U and the V span set to 99, I get a grid that looks like this. But if I set these numbers to 10, it'll look something like this. And I can switch my view to shaded so it's a little easier to see this. So I'm going to put the U and the V spans and set those at 50, then click OK. So we just made our first topographical surface here, and then I'm going to show you a slightly different method of using just extruding from the curves instead of using the patch command. So I'm going to unlock my image layer. I'm just going to make a copy of this. And then I'm just going to delete this surface here. Switching back to the contour layer for each one of these. So I'm going to select each one of these curves, and I'm going to use the extrude curve command. Make sure solid is set to yes. Then I'm going to move my cursor up to the height of the next contour line. And I'm going to repeat this for each one of these. Alright, now it looks kind of funny because the spacing between each of the contours was pretty far. You know, it was sometimes 8 to 10 feet. But if we did this again, and the interval was only, say, 1 or 2 feet, you know, you get more of the look when you build like a physical model and you start layering different materials. And I can show you what that looks like real quick. Alright, so I've changed all of the heights of these just to be 1 foot apart. So now when I extrude these, this should look quite a bit different from the last time we did this. So you can see this one looks a lot more like a physical model that you'd build in comparison to the last one. And sometimes if you model this way, it may be a little bit easier just to model the topography if you're making a lot of changes in your model. You want to be able to edit the terrain a little bit easier than if you were using the patch command, because with the patch command you have to adjust the contour lines and then redo the patch command. So I've showed you 2 different commands, the patch command and then just using the extrude curves to extrude the contour lines up and making each one a flat surface. So the next situation I want to show you is where you have a site plan that has contour lines on it, and you want to use that to make the topography. So I've got a separate Rhino file here. This just has some contour lines that came from a site plan, you know, survey plan. I deleted basically everything but the contour lines. And I'm actually going to copy this and just paste it into my file with the other examples here. I'm just going to move this around. And just to stay organized here, I'm going to highlight these contour lines, put them in the contour folder. And then just like the first example, I'm going to use the patch command to generate my surface. So select everything, type patch. I'm just going to use the same settings as last time. You can always change these and then click the preview here to get a preview. I'm just going to click OK. Alright, so we've got our surface here. So the same thing we did last time, just click patch, and it's very easy to do. So the third method I want to show for getting topography is getting it from Google Earth. So say you don't have a site plan or you can't get GIS information from it. You could use SketchUp and Google Earth to get topography from anywhere on the Earth. So I'm going to start by opening a new SketchUp file. Alright, I'm going to delete the default person here, and then in the Add Location button, so if you don't see here, you can right click and with the location panel here. So add location. So I'm going to add a location somewhat around my area. You can use this to go anywhere you want. Just got to get one of Mount Sugarloaf up here. So click select region, and then you can use these 4 corner points to select the area you want. Alright, then after you've selected the area, just click grab. And we've got our terrain. In the same location toolbar, you can click the toggle terrain, and this will toggle the terrain on and off. So you can switch between the 2D and the 3D. So from here we're going to save our file. Now the important step is we have to save this as a SketchUp 8 file. Now under the Save As type you want to select SketchUp 8. And the reason for this is that Rhino can't open or import any other version of SketchUp than SketchUp 8 or earlier. It may be able to do 2012 or 2013, but usually I always save it as a SketchUp 8 because I don't have any problems opening in Rhino. So we'll save that, and then we can close out of this. And I'm actually going to open a new Rhino file here. So with the new Rhino file open, I'm going to open up that SketchUp file. I'm just going to leave all these settings the way they are. Click OK. My perspective view, click the shaded, so you're going to see it has the 2D and the 3D. I'm going to select the 2D plane, hit delete because I don't need that. And I'm going to copy this to my other file. So you can see the scale is much bigger than the other stuff I was working with. So now that we've got the surface in, usually you just go to using the contour command and it would make contours automatically. Now there's a reason why I don't want to do this with at least the imported SketchUp terrain, and I'll show you why. If I select the imported Google Earth terrain, then type in contour. So in my front or right view, I'm going to select somewhere at the bottom, and then go click up at the top here. So the distance between contours, I'm going to set at 10 feet, and then hit enter. So in my perspective view, you can see that the contour lines are quite jagged. So I'm going to And that's just the nature of the way that the terrain is brought in, and kind of the triangles that it's made up of. So what I want to do instead, I'm going to delete all of those contours. I'm going to select the terrain, and then under the single point over here, you select this out, and then click extract points. So this is going to extract all the data points that came from our Google Earth terrain. And then I'm going to delete the topography so that we're only left with the points. So I'm going to select all these points, and actually I'm going to change them to just the default layer. I'm just going to select them again, and now I'm going to type patch. Hit OK. And this is going to create my topo surface from those points. So as far as creating the surface, we're done with that. Let's say you do want to have some contours in this. So one thing I can do, I'm going to turn my default layer off so I don't see those points anymore. I'm going to select this, and now we're going to use the contour command. Switching back to my other views. So we've got our topography selected. I'm going to type contour. Base point, I'm going to switch to my either front or right view. Click down underneath the bottom, then click up at the top. Distance between points I'm actually going to set at 2 feet, just because the scale of this is so big. If it's set at 1 foot, the contours are going to be extremely close together and it might be harder to see them. I'm going to hit 2, and then it's going to run, and it's pretty interesting to watch this thing go. Alright, so that's finished. I'm going to switch back to my perspective view, and now I have all of my contours and my topography.